I'm going to use the computer for this next one. So the next type of market structure is what we call an oligopoly. And you have a few number of sellers. They don't compete over price. There is competition, but they're not going to worry about any sort of matching price increase. They will sometimes match price cuts. And they kind of have an ability to set market prices. And we'll see that on the graph. I'm going to preface this graph with it looks a heck of a lot very scary, and I will not ask you to draw it, so do not panic on that. I just want those that are going on to some upper level Ag Econ or Ag Business courses to have seen the oligopoly graph before you leave this course. So don't panic, you do not have to draw it. But basically what's going on here is we have a couple different demand curves. So we have the two big D demand curves, which is shown up as green if you have color print-offs. And that's going to represent the demand curve when all oligopolists move prices together and they kind of try to share the market. Then we also have a little d demand curve, which shows up in blue if you have any color on there. And that's going to be when if there's a single firm that decides that they're going to change their price. And what that ends up doing is it leads to what we call a kinked demand curve. And this is really what I want you to know on this graph, is that an oligopoly graph ends up with a kinked demand curve. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to end up, our demand graph will go from here to here. So we'll start with this little d, go towards the 1, and end up down by the big D. Some examples of oligopolists: farm machinery manufacturers. So if you think about who makes farm machinery, we have the big couple, Case, John Deere. Domestic automobile industry, any sort of domestic airline industry. For the most part, there's a couple that take the whole market. Most of the pesticide and fertilizer industry, and quite a bit of the meat markets are also, Tyson and Swift have quite a bit of control over the meat markets, so they would probably also fall under oligopolists. So the next type is what we call a monopoly. Given the game, everyone should know what a monopoly is. So there's only one seller in the market. Your entry is very restricted because there's probably a patent out there that only somebody has. They have absolute power over the setting the market price. Since they are the only ones that are going to be selling it, they have total control. They have a unique product, and they're going to be able to make any sort of economic profit because they do have the ability to set price. However, our graph is going to be very similar to the monopolistic competition graph. And there's a reason for this, and the big reason is that there are laws that restrict monopolies from existing. So true monopolies don't exist anymore. So we have a demand curve, a marginal revenue curve, put a marginal cost curve in there. Once again, price or quantity will be set first, and you're going to set quantity or marginal cost equals marginal revenue. From there, we'll set our supply curve, and monopolies choose to set price where your supply curve crosses the demand curve. Same as the monopolistic competition. They do not have to do that, though. They are not forced to do that because no one else is competing with them. But for the most part, they want to be as efficient as possible, which is why they choose to do that. But nothing is making them or forcing them to be efficient.